In video 1, we looked at importing 3 CSV files into this Miller Textiles Excel workbook. Now, when we imported those 3 files, this queries and connections pane appeared on the right-hand side. And if I click on, say, October, I'm taken to the October sheet at the bottom of my screen. If I click on November and click on December, I'm able to move between those 3 queries. Now, the other thing you may notice is that each one of these tables or queries has been formatted as a table, and that's why we've got these banded green rows. I also know they've been formatted as a table because when I look up here in the ribbon, I see a tab called Table Design. If I click away from the table, that tab disappears, but as soon as I click in the table, it reappears. The Table Design tab is something that we look at in the 3A course. And so if you're new to table design, maybe have a look at the 3A videos. But here are some styles, so I can change my mind about the style that's applied just by rolling over the various styles. And I can also choose things like banded rows coming off, banded rows coming on, banded rows off and banded columns on, turning on banded columns and turning back on banded rows. So we've sort of got these aesthetics, turning on and off the filter, turning on and off the header row, accentuating the first column, accentuating the last column, which is just bold in this particular style, and adding a total row, which simply allows me to add a function to the foot of one or more columns, and I can turn the total row off. So when you bring data in, it naturally wants to format it as a table, and so we get table design. Now, besides these table style options and table styles, which is aesthetics, we've also got some buttons here in this external data, external table data group. For example, I may want to know about the properties of this particular query. So I hit the properties button here. Miller Textiles December 2022 is telling me that basically when it gets refreshed, that the formatting will preserve, the filtering will preserve, the column widths will preserve. There's some properties there. So what do I mean about when it gets refreshed? Well, that means I'm talking about this button. If you have a connection to a data source and that data source has changed, you can actually get the latest data pulled into Excel simply by hitting the refresh button. And so you saw a little bit of action going on here. If I click it again, it's loading the data and those 178 rows were loaded. And if I want to refresh all 3 queries, then I have the option to refresh all. And so you can see all 3 of them are loading and all 3 of them are updated. You've also got a refresh button here, just showing to the right-hand side of each of these queries. And when I rest on each of these queries, I get intel such as there are 6 columns in this table and this is what they're called. It was last refreshed at 9:15 a.m. This is the source where the data is coming from. I can edit this particular information using my Power Query Editor. So that's the Excel 3B course, but I'll close it and load that. Other information that I get is I'm able to delete a particular query, which I don't want to do. So there's some information just by resting on a query. I not only can refresh, but also I can unlink. So if I want to unlink from this source, I just simply hit this button here, and this will permanently remove that query definition. Do you want to continue? And I'll go cancel. So I'd unlink if the source data is likely to be deleted or is likely to be moved. And so I bring the data in and then I unlink to the source data so that it remains just simply in this Excel file. That's what you do there. And the other thing I want to mention, just with the topic of refreshing, is under the refresh button, there is a connection properties option. And if we go in there, basically we can refresh whenever we click this button, but I may want it to refresh every 10 minutes if I know the data is changing quite regularly. Or I may want to refresh whenever I open the file. So yeah, that sort of thing. You can also do a description and you can give the query a different name. So that's the name that you're seeing up here, table name. So I might just call it MT December 2022. So that becomes the query name, which when I go OK will show up here, and OK. It's changed it in here, and it's changed it here. So that's how you can rename it. To be consistent, I might go into the November file, go into the refresh button, go into the connection properties, and change it to MT there, and tell it to refresh whenever the file's open, and OK, and it's updated. And to be consistent here, properties, refresh connection properties, and change that to MT for Miller Textiles, and tell it to refresh the data when opening, and OK. So there's a little bit of intel about refreshing, keeping the data current, making the refreshing occur whenever the file is open or on a regular time interval, investigating those connection properties. So that's what's going on here. Being able to unlink if the likelihood of the file that it's connected to is to move or change or delete, and being able to style the look. So I can go for a blue look for that one, and a blue look that one, so that it's consistent with December. So you've got the styles option, and that's about it. Yeah. So that's video 2.